Hi, second grade. So I'm gonna show you the next step for this project right now of making our birds. So last class or last video, I showed you how to do this, okay? Now your job is going to be to paint them, okay? Now, one thing that I want you to know is that if you want to have your bird look exactly the same on both sides, okay, one thing you can do is you can find a window and you're gonna hold your bird up to the window, and can you see, you can already see through this paper just by holding it up to some light. And what you'll do is you'll trace your lines using the light through the window. So basically I would just set this up against the window and then trace my lines, okay? And you do the same thing with this, okay? So hold it up to some light, trace it, okay? And then after you've done that, you're ready to paint and add some detail and designs to your bird. Now, some of you may want to make your birds look realistic, like the bird that you researched, and some of you may want to get a little crazy and funky, okay? And I'm going to leave that up to you. Again, you are the artist, okay? So you can make your bird look exactly like the one that you researched, or you can make your bird look a little different, okay? Or a lot different. All right, so I'm gonna move the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So you guys have already learned some watercolor techniques because I posted that video on watercolor techniques for the last project, and you can watch that again to get some ideas, but I'm gonna show you some new stuff today, okay? So one thing that I've been doing lately with watercolor is I'll paint something and then I'll wait for it to dry, and then I'll come back in with a fine tip brush and add to it. So everyone has a fine tip brush in their art kit, and what you can do is you can take your fine tip brush, okay? And actually, since these ones already have a lot of detail on them, I'm gonna do it on this one. But you can take your fine tip brush and you can go back in and add details, but you do have to wait until your watercolor's dry to go back in and add these details, okay? Now maybe you just wanna create little feathers, okay? Or maybe you wanna create a pattern on your bird. Or maybe you just want to color one area a different color than you originally did it, okay? But this is just going back in on top of dry watercolor to add detail, okay? And remember, detail is those little tiny things that you add to a piece of artwork that make it more interesting to look at, okay? So that's one option, okay? Also, you can go back in with Sharpie to add designs. And another thing I just kind of discovered to do is you take your straw and you can add color. You can actually, I've even just dipped it in the watercolor, and you add color to the end of your straw, and then you go in and you press down and you make a little circle, okay, onto your bird, okay? So you can actually see that I did that here, okay? And here's some more little details I added using watercolor on top of dry watercolor. So these are all options. I'm gonna post the watercolor video again, so those of you who wanna watch it again can watch it again. But otherwise, you can go back into your piece with watercolor. You can go back into your piece with Sharpie and add some detail. You can even go back in with colored pencil and color a little bit on top of your dry watercolor, okay? See, look what I'm doing here. I'm just doing some blue on top of my dry watercolor, okay? So you've got a lot of options here. All right, I'll take any questions or concerns. Make sure you do one side, then you wait for it to dry and you do the other side. Both sides don't have to look exactly the same unless you want them to, okay? And one thing you could do is you could take a picture of one side, then when it's dry, flip it over and look at that picture while you do your other side, okay? And then remember, you can always hold your paper up to a window and trace the lines to make sure that the lines on both sides match up. All right, happy art making.